an absolutely amazing looking game. Can you tell? I'm talking here, of course, with Ken Levine. Can you tell us a little bit about, well, what you guys were showing off new for the demo here?
The focus of this demo, we try to focus, try to put different focus on each of the demos to like talk about a different part of the game. And the focus today was on your relationship with Elizabeth. I think was a big part of it, and what her story is, and what she's trying to accomplish in the game. And in line with what Booker's trying to accomplish, the Vox Populi, which are one of the factions that you'll be dealing with in the world, and the Skylines, I think, were a big part of it as well, and what that combat experience is like on those things.
And this was the first time that, more of us in the public, the pre-E3 event, we got to see some of the girl's ability to kind of manipulate things in time, and in one case, transport people to a spot back in the 80s. How did you guys decide on which song you were actually going to play for that? Because there's so many awesome 80s songs to choose from.
Yeah, there's... well, first of all, people should go look at the previous demo, listen to the previous demo, and you might find something interesting. The demo we did last year related to that song. But there's... it's just one of those songs, right? That is just when it brings me back to that period, because I grew up in that period, and I think it's about finding. There are certain songs that just feel very evocative and very iconic, and that was just one of those songs. And how can you listen to that song and just not think of that time period? It just puts you there.
And so we're also filming in...
Tears for Fears, Everyone Rules the World, for people who didn't see the demo yet.
Which you should, because it is an awesome demo and an awesome song. And we're here filming in a really cool room that's set up by, I guess, kind of the same world that BioShock Infinite is taking place in. And how did you guys decide on how this would look? Where do you guys get the inspiration for these posters? And
we had the time period. We decided upon the time period, and then we look at the original art from the period. We look at ads from the period. That's very stylistically, an ad from the period. In fact, some of them are based on period ads or inspired by period ads. And advertising has changed a lot over the years. And sometimes just looking, just doing an ad that is set in a period and a time feels incredibly interesting and different, because we're so used to a certain kind of advertising that exists right now. Like, that dude would never show up on an advertisement now. Wouldn't show up on advertising now because he's not appealing, but you see ads back then with some very strange looking characters, and that's always fun, is to go back and do the research, and then, like all things in BioShock, we use the time period for a basis, and then just go crazy with it, because obviously, people weren't selling vigors that gave you superpowers back then, but they were selling patent medicines and things like that, which promised essentially superpowers and cure this, that, and everything else, because there was no Food and Drug Administration, for instance, back then, so you could basically promise anything in an ad. This medicine will cure baldness and blindness and make you stronger and do this for you after you. Of course, it's usually just opium, most of those medicines.
Which does the trick, really.
That's most of the trick. Yeah, at least it makes you feel that way. And they're just stylistically, you just have kinds of art that just you wouldn't see now anymore in ads. And so it's always fun to build these ads. We really enjoy them.
So I have one last question. You've been quite a figure here at E3, actually, because I think you've been a part of almost every press conference except the Microsoft one. So can you talk at all about maybe the kind of things that you're thinking about integrating into the BioShock Infinite universe, maybe to go along with Move, or
from where I'm viewing it as my first priority is I know what I'm doing with with traditional controllers. And the team knows that. We understand that anytime I experiment with control schemes like that, I want to make sure I firewalled off the traditional experience so we don't put that at risk, because that's where our bread and butter is. I said that yesterday. That's where our meat and potatoes is. I'm out of food metaphors. And so we firewall off that, and we say, let's experiment with let's experiment in this area, but let's make sure, hopefully we'll be successful. Hopefully people would dig it. If we're not so successful, then people don't ever know it exists, But if we are successful, it can be something that adds, and that's what I think we always want to do. If you think about BioShock, we have BioShock Infinite has a lot of what BioShock 1 had in terms of, you saw the opening, the demo today. It felt very much like a BioShock experience. You going around a deserted store looking for loot. How BioShock is that? But now Booker and Elizabeth are along for the ride, and what does that feel like? What does that do to the experience? And with any kind of new technologies, I think I'm a skeptic in a lot of ways. So I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to try that, but let me put this over here, make sure it's good, make sure it's safe, and then I'll experiment on the side. And then I'll get confident, I'll spend more time with that, and we'll see how it goes. But look, there's interesting stuff can come out of that, but I don't want to. I would never throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, we're definitely excited to try it out.